I will address 4 things. First, I want to share with you the idea of Barnahus, to answer the question, what is Barnahus? And secondly, I want to share with you some information on how it came into being, how this all started. Thirdly, I want to talk about balancing, on the one hand, the due process or fair trial, or on the other, the best interest of the child. And this is a constant balancing act in our work. And finally, I will talk a little bit about the engine behind the growth of Barnahus, why it is that Barnahus is spreading so fast over all of Europe and transforming the nature of child protection, nature of the work of police, prosecution, the medical professions, and even the court judges. The term Barnahus literally means house for children. And it was coined when the first Barnahus was established in Iceland 25 years ago, 4 months and 21 days. The concept epitomized the core of its mission, to place the child victim at the heart of a multi-agency and child-friendly activities under one roof. From the onset, Barnahus focused on responding to child sexual abuse with coordinated and parallel child protection and criminal investigation, physical and mental health recovery, and access to child-friendly justice. All agencies legally mandated to play a role in addressing child sexual abuse became partners of Barnahus, based on a common understanding that the repetitive interviews in adverse environment were harmful for the mental health of the child victim of violence and negatively impacts the evidential value of children's testimony in the pursuit for justice. The other Nordic states adopted and further developed Barnahus during the years 2005 and 2015, and our Swedish ambassador has made a few remarks there, and I enjoyed in particular that she mentioned Linköping. Linköping played a great role in actually in these first years, Karl-Göran Svedin and his team. And by deciding to use the Icelandic term Barnahus, the foundation for the international application of the concept was established. Furthermore, Barnahus no longer became confined to child sexual abuse, but soon addressed all forms of child maltreatment. After 2015, the child-friendly and interdisciplinary approach proliferated in Europe, and the concept Barnahus became an international currency in the professional and academic discourse. This process was accelerated by the establishment of the PROMISE project of the Council of the Baltic Sea States, supported by the European Union, which issues the first European Barnahus quality standards in 2017. And very importantly, the promotion of Barnahus by the Council of Europe, which was extremely significant, including by a joint project with the EU to support the establishment of Barnahus in a number of states. This played a great role in this development. Now, according to the new recent Council of Europe report, Barnahus, a European journey, 28 out of 46 member states have established Barnahus or similar structures in Europe, and at least 10 more are in the process of implementing it. In some states, for example in the Nordic states, Barnahus can be said to be the default procedure for intervention in child abuse, while in most European countries the implementation process is still ongoing, and therefore Barnahus exists only in limited regional pockets. The path taken in establishing Barnahusa, as well as the governance and organizational setting, differ between countries and sometimes even within countries. And this underlines the flexibility of the evidence-based model and how ingeniously it has been adapted to diverse legal systems, social structure, and professional practices. Now, how did Barnahusa come into being? Iceland, being a very small populated island in the North Atlantic, at the time less than 300,000 at the turn of the century, it was perhaps not the most likely country to introduce an innovation in the implementation of children's rights. However, domestic and external factors generated development that led to the establishment of Barnahusa. In 1995, the Icelandic Government Agency for Child Protection was founded. I was appointed its director. And the government agency was assigned with coordination, competence building, and provision of specialized services in the country, highly decentralized child welfare system. At the same time, very significant developments were taking place in Europe that heightened public awareness of child sexual abuse. High-profile cases played a major role in creating a public demand for government action to prevent and protect children from being victims of sexual crime. In Belgium, in 1996, for example, the case of the serial child sexual predator, Marc Dutroux, evoked hundreds of thousands of people to the streets, protesting the incompetence of public institutions such as the police in dealing with child sexual abuse. And this coincided with the first ever global conference on child sexual abuse and exploitation held in Stockholm in Sweden, the same year, 1996, with participation of 130 governments from all over the world. Now, influenced by these developments, my agency decided to carry out the first study on the prevalence of child sexual abuse in Iceland, measures by the interventions of the different sectors in society, the local child protection services, the medical services, the judicial sector. And the finding of that study came as a shock to a society that largely had been in a state of denial of the very existence of child sexual abuse in the country. It turned out that not only was the number of cases being dealt with by the different sectors higher than anyone had imagined, the lack of professionalism, procedural standards, and collaborations between agencies in dealing with these issues gave rise to serious concern. Consequently, my agency was then entrusted to identify a feasible strategy to reform. Now, the idea of setting up one competence center where professionals from different sectors would collaborate on child sexual abuse came naturally in Iceland due to the small and dispersed population of the country. Moreover, academic interest in children's disclosure of sexual abuse and testimonies in court procedures had become a topic of interest in the context of evaluating children's narratives as credible evidence following multiple examples of miscarriage of justice across the Atlantic. Some of these studies successfully focused on identifying evidence-based practices that help children describe their experiences, including experiences of sexual abuse, in a truthful manner. Investigative interview protocols had been developed in order to avoid leading questions which are prone to distorted narratives from suggestible and vulnerable children. However, the most influential impact on the design of Barnahusa in Iceland was the inspirations from the Children's Advocacy Center in the United States, which at the time was about to take off as the dominant arrangement of child-friendly and multi-agency intervention in child sexual abuse.